Berserk is back for a 2-chapter run that'll last through February, and we couldn't be more excited. The manga is at a crucial stage, with humanity's only true hope being trounced under the feet of trolls and crazed elephants. The Kushan Empire has been besieged by creatures of the darkness and the Falcon of Light's assassin, Rakshas, and things are dicey to say the least. But business is starting to pick up, with our side characters finally taking their main spots. Chapter 379 showed us the response to Rakshas's sudden invasion, and for the most part, good things happened. But the ending of the chapter is what will bring us back on 28th Feb, because it looks like all of this was one big distraction. We'll explain what we mean by that and what went down in the chapter, so strap on your spoiler hats, because this ride is about to get rough. The unexpected flight of Isidro. Why was he trying to leave? Chapter 379 opens up with a shot of the Kushan capital's streets being covered by a murderous mist that reminds us a lot of Emperor Ganishka's fog. It's not a sign of the dread Emperor's return, but it is a good visual reminder of the kind of carnage that evil astral creatures are truly capable of. The streets of the capital are filling up with that blood-like black goo that spawned the trolls in the previous couple of chapters, and the Kushan citizens can only respond to this by running for their lives. We get an aerial shot of the city, and we can see that the trolls have pretty much cornered most of its people. They're pouring out from every back alley and hovel, and panic is the first response of a person that hasn't seen an astral creature before, let alone fought one. The scene then shifts to Isidro and Puck, who are annoyed with the sudden stampede. They realise what's going on way later than everyone else, because Puck leads them to an alley that's populated by fewer people and gets them cornered by trolls instead. Isidro doubts that these creatures are trolls because they look nothing like the ones he fought in Caliphoth, but Puck assures him that they're the same beings. Our mischievous duo was on the verge of a rather sickeningly crunchy ending when they were saved by an unexpected person. Sir Azan, the former vice commander of the Holy Iron Chain Knights, bashes a troll in the head with his iron staff and asks Isidro if he's fine. He corrects the lad when he calls him Moustache Uncle, claiming his name was the Black Moustached Knight, and notes that Isidro brought his bags with him. Azan immediately picks up on the fact that he was planning on skipping town, and Isidro denies this with his signature deflection technique. He claims he was planning on taking a solo trip, and when Azan offers to join him and train him, Isidro tells him to shut up and focus on the job. They manage to stall the trolls just long enough to tell their Kushan spectators to beat it and get to safety, but this one scene explains so much about Isidro and Puck's odd behaviour ever since they left Elfhelm. Isidro has been sulking to the maximum degree. He's got a sullen and dejected look stuck to his face. He pretended to know nothing of magic when Shirka invoked her spell, and he cursed out the Kushan elephants for being so damn big, but it was his breakdown upon Guts' capture that reveals his true emotions. Isidro often struggles with feeling useless because he knows he doesn't have the resolve to kill another human being. Monsters and demons and evil spirits are just fine, because when he fights them, he doesn't have to worry about reducing the population of the world. But human life is sacred, and Isidro still can't spill blood because of the values he was raised with. Guts, Serpico, Bonebeard, Roderick, Azan, even Mule Wolflame, his self-proclaimed rival, are a lot better at permanently ending a threat than Isidro is. And above all else, he's lost his beloved Isma. Isidro and Isma were on track to becoming a couple when she disappeared alongside Elfhelm, and his motivation for leaving his group could be that they're doing everything to help out Casca, but nothing to bring Isma back. Isidro was the most invested in the island girl's fate, not just because he has a crush on her, but also because she saved his life. He fought to get Isma on the seahorse, and he is one of the few people she trusts so much she'd reveal her true name to him. But now she's gone. Shirka's floating somewhere in the ether, and the rest of the adults are gearing up for war. Usually, Isidro would be chuffed at getting an opportunity to fight on the front lines, but in this moment, he has chosen saving the love of his life instead. Unfortunately, cutting his path through a tidal wave of trolls is going to be impossible for him if he doesn't make up his mind about killing, and his only saving grace might be the fact that Azan has taken an interest in him. The Black Moustached Knight has been intrigued by Isidro ever since he saw him fight Bonebeard in Vritannis. He was sleeping on one of the small boats anchored in the harbour when Bonebeard's clash with Isidro and Mule hit the decks, and Azan woke up to drive the pirate away. He then ended up boarding the seahorse unwittingly because the Black Swordsman party used his boat to get to the ship. While he was there, Azan became a crewmate, and his most consistent pastime was sparring with Isidro. He was astonished with the child's ability to turn anything into a weapon, and his demonic dexterity. Though Isidro never managed to land a proper hit on him, he put Azan in trouble many times, and this is a guy who once held a bridge against a few dozen knights. Azan's skill is acknowledged by Guts himself, so he's the perfect new master for Isidro, because not only can he teach him how to fight, he can teach him how to gather his conviction a lot more effectively as well. Guts might be an incredible warrior, but his style of teaching is a lot like on the job training. He never drills Isidro the way a proper swordmaster would, but Azan will. He can drive the doubts out of Isidro's mind and give him the strength he needs to stick with his friends and find a solution to all their problems together. He can understand that the young lad has been through a lot, and all he wants is to become his mentor because Isidro has a lot of potential. He might stop the kid, and that will solve the mystery of Isidro's sullenness, but it won't explain why Puck has suddenly started to pretend that he doesn't know Rickett. The ever-cheerful chestnut has been in serious mode since leaving his homeland, and he isn't really rushing to help Guts like he usually would. It could be that his bond with Isidro has superseded his bond with Guts, but we don't think that's it. Puck was ecstatic to see Rickett in Chapter 129. He immediately recognizes him and offers to help him with the repairs he was making to Guts' equipment, despite knowing that he was scared of elves. Rickett even managed to make Puck blush with his compliments, so it's odd that Puck would act so aloof in front of him in Chapter 376. It's almost like he wants to go with Isidro, and he doesn't want to talk about anything Guts related, which makes sense once we factor in his empathic abilities. Maybe Puck knows more about this causality business than he's been letting on all this while, but that's something we can only confirm once we see more of his storyline pan out. For now, we'll leave it at this. Isidro is a confused young warrior, struggling with transitioning from a boy to a man and pining for a young lady way out of his physical reach. He's lucky that he has guys like Azan in his life to keep him on the straight and narrow, because if he went out solo into Fantasia with his current level of training, he'd be chewed up and spit out by ogres within a week. We hope that for his sake, he's able to work through whatever's going on with him and that Azan's wisdom reaches him. Otherwise, we'll lose two of the most endearing Berserk characters to the evil tide of fate, and we're not ready for that. Farnese steps up her game. Silat takes back control, while Isidro, Rickett, and the Elfhelm Mages groups attempt to hold off the trolls in the streets. Silat, Daiba, Farnese, and Serpico are working to solve the problem at its core. Silat and Daiba are at the epicenter of the manifestation of Cullifalth, along with Roderick and his first mate. They're doing everything they can to hold off the trolls and the elephants that have gone crazy because of Rakshas' appearance, but it doesn't seem to be working. The creatures that were supposed to be under Daiba's control were now crushing his soldiers to death with their feet, and for the first time in his long life, he was at a complete loss for loss. Daiba was still grappling with the meaning of Cullifalth's manifestation and how a mere apostle like Rakshas could make it happen when Silat finally stepped up to the plate. Ever since he'd returned to his homeland, he'd been trying to do things the right way. He was leading expeditions and rescue missions with the new Emperor's authority, but he still wasn't in a position to formally lead his empire's response to Griffith. He was angling for that during the Kurultai Council that Rakshas so rudely interrupted, and at first, Silat appeared to be more vengeful than tactful. He immediately lunged for his clan's exile, seemingly ignoring all the trolls and other creatures in the room, but Chapter 379 makes it clear that that isn't the case. As soon as Rakshas showed up, Silat removed the Emperor from the council chamber because he knew that his survival was of paramount importance to his long-term plan. Once things reached a critical point, and even Daiba started asking him for direction, Silat smirked and made an outlandish request from the Grand Wizard. He wanted Daiba to connect him with the minds of every single person present in the capital, because he had a plan after all. He calls out to all his countrymen via thought transference and updates them on the situation at hand. The Falcon of Light has sent an assassin and an army of darkness to try and swallow the shining sun of Kushan, but they are a warrior people. The Kushan Empire was built off the blood and backs of thousands of deceased warriors, and if there's one thing they all knew how to do, it was fighting. Silat asked his people to draw their swords and fight for their homeland, and this address had the intended effect and then some. The Kushan citizens stopped running and turned around to face their enemies with dignity and poise. Rickett and Erica were delighted at hearing the young master's voice, and their new guests were also looking to him for strength. Silat managed to hit two birds with one stone, because Daiba's mass thought transference also released the elephants from their maddening trance. Rakshas was shocked by this, but the surprises weren't over just yet. As soon as Silat rallied the troops, Farnese finished the spell spell that invokes the four kings, and every single troll within the royal palace started burning within their light. The formation was so huge that it could be seen from every corner of the capital, and it gave the Kushan people hope and strength. If Shirka were conscious, she'd be damn proud of her student, but Morda can always fill her in. A few trolls tried to make a last-ditch attempt at cancelling the spell by taking out the caster, but Farnese had Serpico close by her side. He used the Sylph sword to kill the attackers, and feeling outmatched by the foreigners, Silat's Tapasa joined the action as well. Roderick informed their Kushan allies about the inner workings of the Four Kings formation. As long as they stood within the light, no astral creature could harm them, and we're sure that Daiba was taking extensive mental notes while observing all this unfold. Silat goes for Rakshas now that his army has been incapacitated, and he manages to score his mask yet again, like he has on so many occasions. But once more, the Shadow Apostle slips away to safety. Physical flames are Rakshas's greatest weakness, so we can't imagine what being exposed to the Four Kings' light was doing to his body. He melted into the shadows and escaped from the palace as soon as he could, because otherwise he'd die soon after being resurrected. For an instant, Silat sighed a breath of relief, because the first wave of his defensive plan had succeeded in holding off the enemy. The trolls were retreating from the palace, and the elephants were back under their control. With thought transference connecting him to all his people, he can organize them at an alarming speed, and this is what will get Silat the command he's been hoping for. He knows that even though the northern clan leader, whose body Rakshas used to infiltrate the Kurultai, was biased against him, there are many others on the Kurultai council just like him. By going directly to the people, he's become their representative, and the moment Silat connects to their minds is a lot like another moment from chapter 300, and we think Studio Gaga invoked a parallel to it on purpose. That's because chapter 300 focused on the Griffith side of the story. During the final battle against Emperor Ganishka, who had assumed his Shiva form and was threatening to rip the world apart, Griffith played his riskiest hand yet. He told his war demons to meet Ganishka's pseudos in battle, and he commanded them to assume their real forms. When his human subjects saw just how monstrous their vanguard truly was, they started doubting their allegiance to the Falcon of Light, as well as his true nature. If Griffith was working alongside literal demons, then he must be a demon himself. And trust us when we say, his human followers were really close to making that connection for themselves. But then, Sonia's voice boomed through all their heads and united them at a make-or-break moment. The medium of the Falcon convinced her fellow humans that it didn't matter whether the war demons were human or not, because they were the ones out there, shedding blood of their leader. She reminded them that their distinctions did not matter anymore, because they were all part of the band of the Falcon, led by the Falcon of Light, Griffith. And it worked better than even his causality-anticipating ass would have imagined. Sonia addressed one of Griffith's major optics issues with a single speech, and from that day forward, no citizen of Falconia has questioned their leader. They all follow him blindly to their graves and the abyss beyond it. But Silat's speech wasn't like that. He is rallying his people against the abyss, against the tide of evil that Griffith is unleashing upon the world. When he becomes Supreme General of the Kushan main army, which is all but guaranteed now, he will become a diametric opposite to the man. Griffith uses lies as his primary weapon, but Silat is like a shining beacon of truth. He will expose Griffith's true nature to the true sun and see his demons burn in hell. The turnaround within the council chamber is the first step in Silat's counteroffensive against Falconia, but his joy at having accomplished it is cut short in horrific fashion, because while he knows that Rakshas can no longer engage him in a fair fight, he is also aware of his destination. When the apostle slipped out of the council chamber, Silat dashed after him because he knew that letting Rakshas go would only result in more death and destruction. He wanted to put an end to the Bakiraka disgrace once and for all, but as soon as he gauged his trajectory, he nearly stopped short in his tracks. That's because Rakshas was headed for the one person Silat had hoped to keep out of all this: Guts. Rakshas's escape and real target revealed. The thrill killer was able to navigate his way out of the royal palace with incredible ease, considering he has the power to traverse through shadows. But just because he can speed up his escape doesn't mean he can flee the light of the Four Kings entirely. Farnese didn't extend her magical bulwark too far from the palace, but it burned brightly enough to affect creatures even outside of its range. Being an apostle's, Rakshas had a body of flesh, so he couldn't be burned by the Four Kings formation, but its light might as well be torturing him constantly. As long as it reached his body, Rakshas was in trouble, and he was desperately looking for a way to reconnect with the darkness. He needed to be in the shadows to enhance his chances of winning, and luckily for him, he'd just crossed the prison complex of the Kushan Empire. As soon as he did that, Rakshas picked up on the presence of the brand of sacrifice, because all creatures of darkness are drawn to its presence. In fact, it's quite possible that Guts was partially responsible for Qliphot's re-manifestation, seeing as the seal on his brand should be weakening right about now. It was applied back when he was on Elfhelm, and his current talisman is created by Shirka, who just isn't as powerful as her mistress Flora yet. Though her talisman can curb the major effects of the brand, it can't neutralize its power, which became evident when Guts started doing the screw face upon Qliphot's manifestation. There's also narrative basis to believe that Guts is somehow responsible for what's happening, because the incarnation ceremony was triggered by both him and Casca entering St. Albion, and every night since that night has been worse for him than his time as the Black Swordsman. Their brands are magnets for evil, and it looks like Rakshas has been sent here to either eliminate or try and sway the heart of the God Hand's biggest obstacle. As soon as he senses Guts, he rushes over to his jail cell, killing every guard he finds on his way down. The Black Swordsman senses his approach, but he's still powerless to do anything about it. Guts has been reeling from losing Casca and letting his beast of darkness off the leash for the past few issues, and we don't think he's snapping out of it anytime soon. The final epigraph from chapter 379 tells us that seeking darkness, the demon of the night comes as Rakshas triumphantly creeps up on Guts' cell. "There you are," he says, as we're asked to wait for Feb 28th. But why would he say such a thing? We will explore this in more detail in our predictions video, but the leading cause in our heads is the fact that maybe Guts was his real target all along. When Rakshas first manifested in the capital, he was confused as to why he'd been brought back from the dead. But after engaging Silat and his soldiers for a while, he understands that he's been brought here to extinguish any flame that can stand up to the age of darkness. First on that list is Guts, who we're sure Griffith is actively hunting with his clandestine apostle crews, and maybe that's why Rakshas is so happy at finally finding him, and in such a defenseless state no less. But maybe, just maybe, he's here to offer Guts a deal. If you guys saw our entire life video on Rakshas, you will know that his primary motivation in joining Griffith was being given the opportunity to kill him at some point in time. Being an apostle, there's no way he doesn't know about the infamous Black Swordsman, and maybe Rakshas is here to recruit an ally for his ultimate mission in life. In his first appearance, he promised Griffith that one day he'd take his head, but until that day, he would protect him with his life. Well, he has fulfilled that promise, seeing as he died when Rickett hit him with the Middle Ages RPG. Now, he might be fixated on accomplishing his first goal as an apostle, and maybe the darkness exuding off of Guts' brand can help him survive the Four Kings' light long enough to have a conversation with him. That Rakshas will talk to Guts first, we have no doubts about. He knows that he isn't here just to kill people, and we're honestly relieved that Farnese didn't do something as dangerous as getting him the Berserker armor at such a delicate point in his life. But Rakshas might do what she didn't, and if he does, then there truly won't be any coming back for the guy. The Berserker armor is more harmful than beneficial, that's well established. But when Guts first used it, Zod made an interesting remark. He asked Skull Knight if he wanted Guts to take the same road to hell as him, which implies that the Berserker is somehow connected to the power of the Abyss. It makes sense, considering it draws on all kinds of negativity to power itself, but that also means that Rakshas, with his shadow blending powers, should be able to manipulate it to a degree. He managed to hide out in Zod's wing when he flew Griffith to Shiva Ganishka's head without being detected. The Berserker might be tougher to handle, but Rakshas feels like he's prepared. We can't wait to see what kind of a deal he approached Guts with, or whether he chooses to kill him outright, because Studio Gaga has done a great job of keeping the suspense alive. Ever since they took over, Guts has been kept out of action, and that has enhanced the story with this feeling of impending doom looming over his eventual return. We'd like to hear what you guys think Rakshas will do with Guts now that he's standing across him, so do leave your comments down below, because Marvelous verdict. That's all we've got for you guys in this one. Business is well and truly picking up now that the good guys have started their counterattack, and we hope Studio Gaga maintains this 2 chapters every quarter drop schedule that they've established over the past year or so. Berserk still might take decades to wrap up, but this is a struggle schedule we can be okay with. We've already asked you guys to post your thoughts down in the comments. We will see you guys soon. So until then, take care, be safe, and remember, keep struggling, strugglers.